This is my first time actually being able to go and sit in with the show and see the models up and down the runway. Lake Como is literally something out of a dream. A lot of people go there for destination weddings. They filmed a few movies there, like Star Wars. It's a cannot miss when visiting Milan and surrounding area.
Hi, I'm Ananya. I'm a junior content manager with Trip 101. And today we're going to talk about a beautiful city in Italy. It is known as the fashion capital of Italy, and it is also considered to be one of the wealthiest cities in Italy. So I'm very excited today to welcome Elle to this episode. She is a traveler and she's also a fashionista. So it makes so much sense that we're going to talk to her about Milan. So welcome to this discussion with us today, Elle. I'm very excited to welcome you to this session.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes. And before we deep dive into Milan, the beautiful city that you visited recently, I would like to know a little bit about you. So please tell us where you're from, what do you do, and how did you end up in Milan?
Okay, so my name is Elle. I'm an avid traveler. I've been traveling, for the past 12 years. I've been to 46 countries now. Milan was my 40, the city, Italy in general was my 42nd. I've been to four cities in Italy and went to Milan because my friend is actually a shoe distributor and we went for Fashion Week so that way he can do his showroom to potential clients. And I decided to tag along this year. He goes every year. I finally decided to tag along this year. So I went during Milan Fashion Week. So yeah, that's why I went to Milan.
That's so exciting. Is the Milan Fashion Week all that you expected it to be? Was it as glamorous as we see it in the pictures?
It definitely was, especially coming from a New Yorker's perspective. I'm used to seeing Fashion Week here all the time growing up every year. I definitely love the way I got to attend one or two shows. I just love the fashion of Milan. It definitely is reminiscent of how it is here in New York City. I felt like it was a little bit more over the top, a little bit more couture, a little bit more dramatic. So I really did love that. I appreciated that when I saw the shows.
Oh, wow. So coming back to you a little bit, so you document all your travels on your social media platforms as well, right? Like that's something that you like to do, map your travels and combine it with your glamorous self, which is like into a fashion a lot. So I want to know about your handles as well.
Okay, Instagram is it's L Glam, ITSELEGLAM. And then my TikTok is everywhere with Elle, which I deep dive a little bit more into my travel and my fashion content, like the behind the scenes. And the
Mhm.
Instagram, I really just use a lot of stills and some reels to display my travels.
You've been doing this for a while. Like you visited 46 countries, you said. Your Instagram and your TikTok are pretty active with all these fabulous
Yes,
destinations you visited. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and 46 is such a huge number to have accomplished.
I know I was able to do 10 alone this year or 8 alone this year. I have to double check, but I recently became a flight attendant with Delta in February. So that helped me to get those extra 10 countries this year alone.
Oh, wow. So now you can see more of the world.
Exactly, yeah.
So, do you have a favorite that you visited this year? It's November already. So, are you thinking about which one was your best trip this year?
Definitely a lot of diverse places. Tokyo for sure would be near the top of that list. I just came back from that on Thursday. So Japan overall, it was like a different world coming from New York City. So
Mhm.
that would definitely be one of the top.
I think most people who come back from Japan say they left their heart there. So I think it's a crowd pleaser. Everyone loves it when they get there. So I'm so glad it's Japan for you too.
Oh, thanks. Oh, have you been there as well?
I haven't, but I plan to go soon.
Well, oh yes, it's definitely nice. Yeah.
So let's come back to the trip you did to Milan. How long was your trip?
So my overall trip to Milan and surrounding areas was 5 days.
Okay. And how was the weather? I'm sure they planned the Milan Fashion Week when the weather is optimum over there. But
Right,
how
yeah.
was
It was
your
actually really, it was warm. It was temperate. Some days it was like 70. I think the highest might have been like 75, but it was low 70s, so it was at fashion weather.
Yeah, I was thinking about it that they must be planning the fashion week at a time when people can be fashionable. The weather should be comfortable for everyone to be able to,
Right.
yeah, wear the
Yeah,
best
just
of.
how you want to dress up and everything.
Yeah, from the pictures on your handle, you definitely took the opportunity to try out some of your like fabulous outfits, glamorous ones for sure, didn't you?
Incorporating that into my travels, maybe like within the last 7 years, where I mimic the aesthetic of wherever I'm going through my attire. It makes my trip more enjoyable. And then through that, I've had people reach out to me to ask me to style them for their vacations and special moments. So it's been really fun.
So, and I want to know more about what you did in Milan. How was your trip? Did you directly go to the fashion week, or were you also visiting some of the attractions parallelly? How did you plan it?
So the way I planned Milan was I did my research and saw that outside of Fashion Week, there isn't too much to do in Milan. It's really good as a walkable city, and they have a really good metro system. So it's easy to get around via train, bus, taxi. It's a very easily commutable city. So I
Mm.
just went around, I ate a lot, tried different restaurants. None of them were extremely memorable. There was some good food. The cost also took me aback. I thought it was going to be more expensive than New York or on par. It's a little bit more affordable. And
Mm.
then, of course, I went to see the Duomo Church, this beautiful cathedral that I believe they said took 700 years to build. I did the sunset tour of that so I could get a nice view on the rooftop with the sun setting, cascading the beautiful figurines and the building.
How nice. Yeah, the cathedral is the number one attraction over there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, how was your experience at the Duomo?
It was amazing. You have to book your ticket in advance if you want that sunset glowy look. It's the most optimal time because it's not as crowded. The last entry was around 5:50 p.m. So that's the time I got there and most people were starting to leave out. So we stayed there for maybe like from we got in like around 6, maybe 6:30, 6:40, and it started to clear out a lot. So it was great to have that space without
Hmm.
heavy foot traffic during the day. And the best time to the sunset is either fall or spring. During the summer, where the sun sets later, you don't really get that opportunity to get up there when the sun is setting because they do close the cathedral at a certain time.
So, when you went in September, it was still in time for
Yes,
that
because the
moment.
sun was setting like around 6 o'clock, a little after 6. So yeah.
Oh wow. So that must have been pretty spectacular because it's like a really gorgeous building. The architecture
Mhm.
itself is so spectacular. And then when you combine it with the golden hour sunset, then
It
that's quite
was
something to.
perfect. It was the best time to go. I'm so happy we chose that time.
And what were the other attractions that you visited in Milan?
So across from the cathedral, there is this gallery where you go in, and it's just a whole bunch of lined up luxury stores. It's directly across from the cathedral. There's one spot where people like you spin around in a circle for good luck, just walking through the shops and the gallerias. It was such a short time. I didn't get
Hmm.
to go to any museums. I went to the surrounding areas. The main thing was being in that square.
I do want to know more about Fashion Week itself. What was the experience like over there?
It was really amazing because this was my first time actually being able to go and sit in with the show because of my friend's access. So it was nice being able to sit and see the models up and down the runway, as well as seeing some of the collections that he's trying to sell in his store in the US and just being with him because that was his moment. Seeing my friend in his element and being able to share that special moment with him. And just the liveliness of the crowd, the fashion, but the people as well, and people coming in from all parts of the world. So it was a real treat of being in Milan, but getting that extra exposure to meet people from all over the world because they've flown in for this fashion week.
Sounds fun.
So for a city like that where there's not as much to do for tourists, it's great to travel there when there's something major going on to also give
Hmm.
you an extra bang for your buck. So I'm really big on that.
Yeah. And you were comparing it a little bit to New York Fashion Week, which you visit almost every. How was
Mhm.
it different from what happens in New York?
It's not necessarily different. The clientele and the demographic and the culture that attends is also quite similar because a lot of people from Milan Fashion Week come to New York Fashion Week. Those are one of the top two locations for that event. I definitely prefer Milan Fashion Week because you're in Italy. It's just a whole different vibe overall. So that's how I would say it was different. The
Yeah,
main
so
difference, I guess I would say.
the destination itself is making
Exactly.
making
Exactly.
a huge difference. Yeah, that's so great. Then the other few days that you were in Milan, you mostly ventured out to explore nearby locations like towns or cities, or you also mentioned Lake Como.
Mhm. So that's an awesome destination to visit when you are in Milan. It takes an hour by bullet train. I believe the cost of the train, it was actually less than 10 euros. So less than 10 euros, it takes an hour, super quick, super affordable to travel to. And that way you get to Lake Como, you get to visit the famous Bellagio. There's a ferry. I do recommend for the ferry to book in advance. If not, when you get there, you'll wind up like me. It was an extremely long line. Lake Como is literally something out of a dream. A lot of people go there for their destination weddings. I know that they filmed a few movies there, like Star Wars. It's a cannot miss when visiting Milan and the surrounding area. So
So
I
you,
stayed for 2.5 days in Bellagio. I went to a lot of some TikTok recommended restaurants, walked around a lot. It's definitely a lot of walking. Europe in general is a lot of walking, so definitely pack comfortable shoes. And I also did, of course, you can't go to Lake Como without doing a boat tour. They have private tours, which are more on the expensive side, but still worth it. Those boats run about, I believe, 600 for 2 hours. It's your own private boat. You get your own private caddy, and they take you around Lake Como and the surrounding areas. Some of them even take you to Switzerland, but of course, they'll let you know up front because you do have to have your passport for entry into that side of the lake. I didn't do that one. And then one that I did, an open champagne bar cruise with 5 other people, more economical. That one was about, I want to say 150 euro per person. And that one was a 2 hour tour on the lake, unlimited glasses of champagne and Prosecco. And the tour guide stopped at different pivotal points on the lake. The Star Wars house. I'm not really too much into that movie, but I'm aware of it. So they showed us where the White Wedding or something wedding, like this main scene that was filmed. They took us to where different shows were filmed. They showed us George Clooney's house on the water. It was breathtaking. It's also romantic if you have a partner. I went solo. I just wanted to see the views. So it doesn't have to be, but it's also a nice romantic excursion if you are
it is a
traveling with a
dreamy
partner.
location.
Yes. So dreamy. It's literally something out of a storybook that's been on my
Yeah.
bucket list for so long. And I was happy while I was in Milan, I was able to venture over and experience that.
Yeah, the 2.5 days that you spent in Bellagio, you were exploring and trying out the restaurants, etc.
Yeah, so a lot of walking around. There's these main steps in Bellagio where everyone takes a picture. I think they're called the Bellagio steps. And of course, doing the boat tour. I actually spent that extra half day specifically for the boat tour because the 2 days I was there, it was extremely windy. So even though temperature-wise it was temperate, when it's too windy, just also something to be mindful of. The smaller boats do not go out for safety reasons, but I was not leaving without going on the boat. So I stayed that extra half day to make sure that I at least got to do that excursion. So steps to Pescalo, that was the main thing that we did. Salida Serraboli was the main attraction. So Bellagio is definitely way more. Milan is where you get like your nightlife, city, like more adventure. Bellagio is definitely way more tranquil, calm. It's good, like I said, for it's more of a leisure and relaxing
Hmm.
counterpart to your bustling Milan trip. So it's more walking around, visiting restaurants, having a glass of wine on the lake. It's way more serene. Also, not as nightlife is non-existent. That's
Hmm.
also something to note. Pretty much things close early, like around 8, 9, things will start closing down. There might be one or two bars open, but a calm destination. That's definitely worth checking out.
It makes sense to combine the two on a trip. One is vibrant and like a city, and the other one's like the quiet counterpart to it, which where you can like enjoy a quiet walk and visit attractions. It sounds like that.
Exactly. Those two destinations you don't need a lot of time in. So that's also good for people who may have limited travel time. So let's say, especially with the work culture in the USA, a lot of people do not have a lot of days off for work. So they really try to optimize the vacations that they are able to take. So Milan and Lake Como are is the perfect quick getaway where you're still getting amazing culture, history, scenery, while also maintaining some of your vacation days.
So you said 5 days was good enough for all of this, including
For
even though
both,
you had to,
yes, for sure.
yeah, and including even though you had to extend an extra day for boat tours.
Yes,
That's pretty great. You got lucky as well that on that other day it wasn't windy and you could take the tour.
I know. I was like, no, I cannot. This has been on my bucket list since I was a child. The scenery is literally so breathtaking. And I don't know when I'm going to come back just for this because you
Mm.
do have to fly into the airport closest to Milan to get to Lake Como. Right now, I'm trying to go everywhere in the world. It's rare that I'll revisit somewhere right now. I just knew I was like, it has to be done now.
And that's pretty great. I think we have talked about what you did. I would now like to know about what sort of food did you have over there? Did anything stand out? You mentioned you tried out a few restaurants which are popular on TikTok as well. So
Mhm.
did anything stand out for you?
The food in Milan was okay compared to places that I've been to, like Rome, most amazing pasta that I've ever had, Florence, like different cuisines depending on the city that you are in Italy. Milan was good, but I've been spoiled by other cities in Italy, so I know what to compare it to. That's good to go for the theatrics. Cuisine wise, it didn't live up to the expectations that I had, and that's called Crazy Pizza Milan. And what it's known for is that when you go in there, the servers they do a show with their pizza while they're flipping it around in the air. So a lot of
Hmm.
tourists go for that novelty, not necessarily for the cuisine. So that's something to keep in mind. QC Spa in Milan. I was not able to go to that one. I went to the one in New York City. We have one on Governor's Island. I've heard amazing things about the one in Milan's QC Spa. It's way more affordable than the one in New York. And they have this attraction where there's water coming down from the ceiling. It looks really nice and tranquil. That's something that, even though I didn't do, I would recommend to anyone who asks me what there is to do in Milan. And then, of course, the Dome that we spoke about has a lot of amazing rooftop restaurants. And with these restaurants, you're able to eat while viewing the cathedral. So those were some of the main things, minus the QC spa that stood out to me. If you want really good pasta, Ostenia da Fortuna, that's good. I actually also visited their sister location in Rome. They have locations throughout different cities in Italy. Gelsomina is a breakfast brunch pastry shop. By the time I arrived, brunch was over. So I had this amazing like puff sandwich. Imagine bread filled with like vanilla cream souffle custard. Really amazing. And I tried to pair it with something healthy. So I had some cucumber juice, balance out the sweetness. But that I also got as a recommendation from TikTok as well. And that I can say was an amazing pastry. So I can attest to the brunch because I did arrive when the kitchen was closed. The bakery portion of that restaurant was really amazing. And those were the main places I ate at. So the pasta, the brunch spot, the crazy pizza Milan, and the rooftop restaurants and bars overlooking the cathedral.
That's great. So most of these restaurants that you mentioned, are they also in the vicinity of the cathedral or spread out further away?
The brunch place was a bit spread out, but doable. So I walked. I remember that was like a 40-minute walk. The train probably would have taken me 20 minutes, but since I use walking as a way also to see the city, so I just walked the 20 minutes get to the cathedral. Crazy pizza was in the vicinity, about like 15-minute walk. And then Some top restaurants I could say that were overlooking the cathedral were, yes, this one was the best one. Okay, so La Recente Rooftop. It is on the more pricier side, but you're getting an amazing view. The food, I would really honestly give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely one of those places that because they know they have the advantage of the scenery, that was their primary focus. The food was good, but I've had better, especially at the Astoria La Fortuna restaurant. It's nice if you just want like a glass of wine, a glass of Prosecco, just overlooking the cathedral, because at night, even when they close the cathedral, they light it up itself. So the cathedral is lit in like these beautiful yellow lights that make it look gold. So it's really nice to sit there and just eat your cuisine, drink your glass of wine, and just look at that.
Sounds like a fascinating experience with that magical glow to the
I was
cathedral.
gonna say everything about that ship's a perfect word, magical. From the lake to the vibrancy of the city is definitely a very magical Milan and its surrounding areas. Very
Mm.
magical place.
So now you were saying how you walked to most of the places. So how much were you walking each day?
Ooh, I would say I'm also very used to walking. So for me, I would say 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. I know that sounds like a lot, but being a New Yorker where we walk everywhere, we're taking the train or public transportation, I actually don't walk as much here in my own city as much unless I'm going to Central Park. Most of the time, I'm trying to get to a destination. But on vacation, if it's a walkable area, I always choose to walk to just take in more of the scenery, get a little bit more of a local experience than I would from just hopping from underground on the train from place to place. So yes,
The
definitely bring your walking shoes from Milan for sure.
I think the beautiful scenery makes it easier to do the walks as well.
Yes, exactly. And then you just get to hear side conversations. It just really more engulfs you into the real culture of the city.
Did you end up taking any transport? You mentioned a ferry that you took to Bellagio, but other than that, did you take any transport or were you walking
I
throughout?
did take the train in Milan, like, so I didn't walk. I walked a lot, but I also took their metro system to go different places. I've took the taxi when I arrived from the airport, and then I also hopped on. They have these beautiful trolleys. Something, wherever else have I seen trolleys like that? Like in San Francisco or like in Portugal, they have
Oh,
like trolleys. Yeah.
the
So
trams,
I
the
took that just
trams.
for the trams. That's okay. So I just
Yeah.
took that for the novelty, but really I took the train as well a lot.
Oh, nice. So was it easy to access the train system, the metro?
Yes, so you can pay from your phone. I use Apple Pay. Super easy. I want to say each trip was about 2 to 3 euros.
Mm,
So also
that's pretty
relatively affordable. The trains. Something I wish I knew before going is that the trains aren't exactly too prompt. So let's say it's supposed to arrive at 12, it might arrive at 12:10, 12:15. This
good.
got me a couple times. In New York, I'm used to taking the train. So if the train comes at 12:10, I'm gonna stroll in probably like 12:09, 12:08, not giving myself too much leeway for missing the train, but I would do that and then I wouldn't see the train for several minutes, thinking, oh my God, did I miss the train? The train never arrived. So that's one thing.
It
They
was
aren't
messing with you.
extremely prompt, which isn't a big deal, but that's something to note if you have a reservation or a time crunch or obligation of somewhere that you do need to be. Just something
Yeah,
to keep
okay.
in mind.
As a traveler, you can still manage with a little bit of delay, except of course if you've booked a tour and you have to
Yeah,
get
that's
in.
what, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I learned the last half of day when I actually ended up doing the boat tour that in addition to the ferry, there is a bus that goes around the island because the island around the lake, because the lake eventually all does connect. So there are different buses that go around the lake. So I did that the last half day that I was there. So that was also nice to get. So I was able to get the view of
Mm.
the lake from a ferry's perspective and then also from being on the bus.
That must have been a different perspective and quite nice as well.
Oh yes, oh sure, because you get to see the houses and the buildings close up as opposed to on the lake.
Sounds like a magical and dreamy place to be, especially I think Lake Como for sure.
Definitely. I would recommend it 1,000 times, especially like I said, as a wedding destination, engagement destination. So like
Mhm.
there's actually a lot of, so you can't even go on to, you could only go on the grounds of the estate, but not inside because
Mhm.
it is such a popular wedding destination. So that's
Yeah.
also something to keep in mind when you visit Lake Como. A lot of the grounds, estates, and castles are reserved if you want to check out the inside. I was able to check out the grounds, which is fun enough and picturesque enough for me.
Yeah. What did you do about your accommodations? Like, what were you staying in Milan and Village?
For Milan, we did an Airbnb. So we were in a regular building. It was super nice. Definitely felt more homey. Whereas in Bellagio, we did do a hotel. I want to tell you guys the name of that hotel because that hotel was actually really nice in Bellagio. And we did that super last minute because as a flight attendant, I now fly standby a lot. So that's the way I pay minimal or no money for flights. The downside to flying standby is that you may not make that flight specifically that you're looking at. So
Mhm.
a lot of times now I'll book my accommodations when I've already been cleared to board so way in advance. So that way I
And
know for sure, okay, I'm going to arrive at this hotel at this time.
I always wonder who are the people who are able to do the last minute bookings because I'm not that person.
So that was a life change with becoming a flight attendant is I don't want to say the lack of planning, but the last minute planning. That's the better way. So we actually did hotel. It was called Hotel Bellagio.
Okay. Quite straightforward.
Yes. So we did Hotel Bellagio. The accommodations were super nice. They had access to view the lake from the property. We did have breakfast there. It was a standard breakfast, Italian breakfast, so we had like mozzarella, prosciutto. They did have some pastries, and then we ate out most of the time. So I didn't really have dinner at the that hotel to attest to how that cuisine is. But the breakfast was nice that we were able to get accommodated last minute, like literally a few hours before landing in Milan and heading to the lake. Because we
Okay.
started the trip with the lake first, then went to Milan and came back to the lake.
Mhm.
Split it up.
Did your rooms also have view of the lake?
Actually, it did, yes. It
Okay.
wasn't a majestic view. We didn't have a balcony, but from our window we could see it. And then when you went out into the dining area, they did have a viewpoint where you could overlook and see the lake. So that was really
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, that's quite a great thing that you booked at the last minute, but you still got a room that had a view. So I'm guessing
Yes.
most of their rooms must
Most of
have.
the, yeah,
Yeah, that's a great. That really adds to your stay significantly.
definitely. And that was about around 200 to 250 euros a night. The price fluctuates depending on the season. You could find it for around 50 euro if you book in advance or if it's not during a popular time. We got it a little bit pricier, but not crazy expensive compared to other options, and some weren't available due to our last minute booking. Something to note as well.
I guess that week is specifically, I'm guessing it's the busiest time to be in Milan as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Now I want to specifically ask you if there was a first time traveler asks you about what would be the tips that you would give to them before they visit Milan.
As a first time traveler, a tip that I would give before visiting Milan, of course, knowing that it's a very walkable and commutable city. So make sure to dress in a way that you're comfortable with. Your feet won't hurt with wearing really tight or high heels because you're going to be walking a lot, and a lot of the attractions sometimes you do have to wait in line for. So that's something to know. If you're already from a big city, it's definitely a very easy transition. If you're not, then the walking I know can be an adjustment. I have a lot of friends here that live in the suburbs, and walking is like something they really hate because they're so used to hopping in their cars and driving to where they need to go. So that's
Mhm.
definitely something to know. The main thing I would say about Milan. As far as language barriers, I didn't really have too many issues as a non-Italian speaker. It was very easy to find people who spoke English. And in the rare instances where I did come across a non-English speaker, I just used my Google Translate. But it's very English speaking friendly. If that's any concerns that you have about not speaking the language, it's definitely not 100% necessary to really get the most out of your trip to speak the language. Of course, knowing a few words definitely does help, but you don't need to be well versed in Italian to enjoy your stay in Milan. And what else as a first time traveler? If you're also from a big city, you're well acclimated to things closing late, people being out late. So that's something that I really enjoyed being a New Yorker. Things didn't close super early. There were things going all night long. What else? If you're not from a big city, that's something to note that the bars are open till 2, 3 a.m. The clubs are open till 2, 3 a.m. There's always something going on. There's always people outside. So those will be the top three things I would say for a first timer to give advice to for visiting Milan.
Those were all really great suggestions. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you
and I do have one more that is extremely important too. Cash. Places like the Metro and some restaurants do take Apple Pay, contactless payments, or card. Do take contactless payments or card, but a lot of places will require cash too.
okay? Okay. And what about what did you have to like keep buying it, or could you fill it from a tap, something like from your Airbnb itself?
No, most of my water, I purchase different water bottles. I love sparkling water. So I purchase water with gas on the go.
Okay.
As far as drinking the tap water and things of that concern and that nature, I'm not too sure about that. But the water is definitely safe to brush your teeth with drinking straight from the tap. I didn't do that trip. I didn't hear anything about it, so it might be a possibility, but that's something I will definitely also say to add to your research when visiting Milan.
Yeah, noted. So now I have my last question for you. Did you bring back any souvenirs from Milan or Bellagio?
From Milan, I bought heels, dresses, tops. From Bellagio, I got silk scarves. It's way more affordable there than it is here in New York. So, for instance, let's say I'm not too good with math and measurements. Let's say 5 by 8. Hopefully that things make sense. This 100% pure silk scarf I purchased for 55 euros. So something like that in New York could easily cost well over $100. So when I travel, I always try to bring back something memorable that I'm actually going to use. Sometimes I'll do the casual keychain or trinkets, but I'm really big on actually purchasing. For me, fashion is a big part of my life, my travels. So I purchase mostly clothing.
Wow, that's and how did Milan do on your list of places
I
which have
loved it. I love the fashion of Milan. And also the thing about shopping, when you are in different places, that you get a better sense of the culture because, of course, you're able to purchase different things from different countries that have a different aesthetic, if you will. So
yeah.
I definitely, Milan is it was more for me like feminine and very like dainty, the items I was able to purchase in Milan.
Oh wow. So you mentioned dresses, heels, and scarves were the three key
Mhm.
items that you definitely did pick
Yes,
up from over there. Yeah.
yes,
So the fashion capital tag is not for nothing. It definitely did live up to your expectations.
yes. That's actually the main, outside of Fashion Week, the main reason people go to Milan is to shop. That's the tourist attraction. Like that's one of the
Yeah.
main things that people do there.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. And I'm so glad that it lived up to what you were expecting from it as well. So cool.
But yes, definitely. I'm happy I went during Fashion Week, so that was really nice as well.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Elle, and sharing about your trip to Milan. I'm really glad that we could cover all the details about what all you saw, what you ate, and especially the fantastic experience at Milan Fashion Week itself that you were able to take part of because of your friend. A huge thanks to him as well. He's the one who's enabled the trip and helped us come to this point today where we could hear about your travel. Thank you to both of you. And with that, we'll sign off for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out. I love doing this was a nice interview to do. And hopefully your viewers definitely get a lot of information and substance from it.
Yeah, I hope so too. So thank you so much and bye bye.
Bye.